I never imagined that a simple visit to my husband's office would turn my life upside down. That morning, I woke up feeling excited, clutching a small bouquet of his favorite flowers, imagining the smile on his face when he saw me. I had planned this little surprise for weeks, thinking it would be a sweet reminder of our love. The sun was warm, the city bustling, and I felt light with anticipation. As I walked into the office building, I called his name softly, expecting the familiar footsteps and laughter that usually greeted me. But what I saw instead froze me in my tracks. There, sitting across from David, was my sister Sarah. At first, I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me, but the moment our gazes met, I realized the truth and my heart sank. Sarah was not just visiting. She was acting as me, laughing with him in a way that felt like a knife twisting in my chest. Confusion, shock, and betrayal hit me all at once. The person I had trusted most, my own sister, was now a stranger wearing my face in front of my husband. Questions flooded my mind. How long had this been going on? How could they do this to me? Every memory of trust, every bond I thought unbreakable, now felt shattered. I took a shaky breath, trying to steady myself. I knew I had to confront this, to uncover the truth no matter how painful it might be. And so, my journey into a web of lies, deceit, and unexpected revelations began. If you have ever experienced betrayal, or you are curious how one simple visit can unravel hidden truths, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You won't miss a single moment of this story. In the months that followed that shocking day at the office, my life became a delicate balancing act between love, loyalty, and the unseen currents of betrayal swirling around me. I had always believed that trust was the foundation of any relationship, that honesty could weather the storms life threw our way. Yet I was discovering how easily it could be twisted, manipulated by those closest to me. David, my husband, maintained the perfect mask of devotion, smiling warmly, reassuring me of his love, all the while hiding a secret I was powerless to detect. And Sarah, my own sister, the person I had confided in countless times, whose struggles I had promised to help shoulder, now wore a different mask, one that concealed her betrayal beneath vulnerability and need. I remember sitting with her on countless evenings, listening to her voice tremble as she recounted the hardships of her own life, offering her comfort, advice, and support. I never suspected that each moment of sympathy I extended, every word meant to ease her pain, was also a thread she used to weave a web that ensnared me. I reminded myself often that family comes first, that loyalty to those we love requires patience and understanding. Yet even as I nurtured her, her deception moved silently beside me, unseen but palpable in ways I could not yet comprehend. There were days when I left her apartment feeling drained but satisfied, believing I had helped her, believing that I was making a difference in someone's life, never imagining that she was simultaneously undermining the life I had built. The subtlety of their manipulation was what made it so effective. David would casually mention frustrations or small mistakes, prompting my concern and compassion, while Sarah's words would echo insecurities I felt compelled to soothe. I was caught in a delicate dance of emotional give and take, unable to perceive that the steps were being choreographed against me. I replayed each memory of support I gave, each act of kindness, and a quiet sense of betrayal began to gnaw at me. Though I did not yet have the courage to name it, in my mind, I kept returning to the belief that love and family were invincible, that even the hardest trials could be faced together. I wanted to believe in David's eyes when he said he appreciated me, and I wanted to believe in Sarah's tearful confessions of hardship. Yet each interaction carried the weight of secrets I could not see. There were evenings when laughter filled the air, and I convinced myself that all was well, that the world was safe and familiar. And yet, the truth lurked beneath the surface, a silent undertow pulling at the edges of my perception, preparing to reveal itself in ways I could not yet imagine. The cruel irony of it all was that my trust, extended freely and without hesitation, became the very instrument that allowed both my sister and my husband to manipulate me. Every gesture of kindness, every offer of guidance, was repurposed into a tool for deceit, leaving me to grapple with the duality of love and betrayal. I often wondered if anyone could truly detect such duplicity, how one could remain blind while standing so close to the source of deception, even as I helped Sarah navigate her life. Even as I reassured David of my unwavering devotion, I was unknowingly participating in a story whose ending was beyond my control. A story that would test the limits of trust, loyalty, and the fragile nature of family bonds. I moved through those months like a traveler in a shadowed landscape, guided by hope, compassion, and faith in those I loved, all the while blind to the intricate lattice of lies enveloping me. And though the signs were subtle, in retrospect they were there, whispers in the wind of an impending reckoning that would challenge every certainty I had ever held about love, family, and the truth. The day I uncovered the full extent of David's deception, a chilling clarity washed over me, the kind that settles into your bones and refuses to leave. What had once seemed like ordinary financial disagreements, minor discrepancies in accounts and unusual requests for documents, suddenly took on a sinister coherence, a pattern that revealed the unimaginable truth. David had been orchestrating an elaborate long-term investment scam, not just against strangers, but against me, Sarah, and countless other women who had trusted him. The staggering scale of it made my stomach churn. Nearly $1.2 million had been siphoned away through a web of lies and forged documents, each falsified signature a testament to his meticulous cruelty. I felt as though I had been living in a parallel reality, one where every reassuring smile, every whispered promise of security and success, had been a carefully constructed facade, masking a financial labyrinth built entirely on deceit. As I traced the threads of his betrayal, the intricacy of his scheme became horrifyingly clear. The fake company he had created in a shell was a meticulously maintained illusion of legitimacy, complete with falsified contracts, counterfeit financial statements, and professional correspondence designed to lull his victims into complacency. Each piece of evidence I had made the betrayal sharper, slicing through the illusions of trust I had clung to so desperately. I recalled the countless nights I had spent discussing our financial future with him, the plans we made together, the dreams I thought we were building as a family, and now I saw them as nothing more than smoke and mirrors, a stage on which I had been both audience and unwitting participant. Sarah's involvement, too, cut deeper than I could have imagined. While I had offered her support through what I believed were her personal struggles, it became apparent that she had been a silent accomplice, whether knowingly or unknowingly feeding into the manipulation that enriched David. The lines between victim and perpetrator blurred, leaving me in a liminal space where trust had no footing, and every memory of familial closeness was tainted by suspicion. I felt the weight of every dollar lost, not just in its financial magnitude, but in the emotional currency I had invested hours of guidance, patience, and care that had been used as leverage against me. The realization of the forgery, the cold precision with which documents had been fabricated to hide the theft, made the betrayal almost cinematic in its audacity. Yet the reality was painfully mundane, lodged in emails, spreadsheets, and contracts that should have been innocuous. I spent days poring over files, each line of text a reminder of how thoroughly I had been deceived, how meticulously my trust had been exploited. The shock was compounded by the casualness with which David had carried on his double life. The audacity of maintaining a persona of honesty and love while simultaneously siphoning away the futures of those who believed in him. I found myself oscillating between disbelief and rage, the intimacy of the betrayal deepening the pain. This was no longer a matter of emotional treachery. It had taken on a tangible, quantifiable form, a nearly $1.2 million testament to greed and manipulation, leaving me to reconcile the man I had loved with the criminal I had uncovered. And as I stared at the falsified contracts, the forged signatures, and the empty promises that had once seemed so real, I understood that the landscape of my life had irrevocably changed. The foundations of trust, love, and family, pillars I had taken for granted, were revealed as fragile constructs, easily shattered by deceit. I knew that from this point forward, the journey would not merely be one of recovery, but a painstaking unraveling of illusions, confronting truths I had long avoided, and reclaiming a sense of reality that David had stolen with every calculated lie and every dollar funneled through his fraudulent empire. The moment came when the weight of silence and suppressed outrage could no longer be borne, and I found myself standing shoulder with Sarah and the other women who had been ensnared in David's elaborate deception, united not by forgiveness, but by a shared determination to confront the man who had stolen so much from all of us. It began with whispered conversations and cautious planning, each of us hesitant at first, uncertain of how to transform our individual pain into collective action, yet drawn together by the undeniable truth that the time for quiet reflection had passed. We spent long nights exchanging details, cross-referencing stories, and piecing together a mosaic of deceit that was far larger than any of us had initially realized, a pattern so intricate that only by combining our experiences could we begin to see the full scope of David's manipulations and the audacity of his schemes. I remember the night before the confrontation, the tension in the air thick and palpable, as if the very act of speaking out against him had already begun to shift the balance of power. There was fear, certainly, the kind that gnaws at the stomach and keeps sleep at bay, but there was also a burgeoning resolve, spark of courage that grew brighter with each account of betrayal shared around the table. We meticulously planned the confrontation, deciding to make it public not out of spectacle, but to ensure that the truth could no longer be hidden behind a veil of charm and false apologies. It was not revenge we sought, but accountability, a demand for restitution not only in material terms, but in recognition of the violation of our trust and the emotional turmoil he had inflicted on each of us. When the day arrived, the air itself seemed charged with anticipation, a sense of collective purpose binding us together. We faced him in a place where the world could bear witness, where the manipulations and lies could no longer be whispered away or dismissed as misunderstandings. I remember the moment our voices rose together, recounting the intricate details of his schemes, the falsified contracts, the diverted funds, and the emotional betrayals that had been so carefully concealed. David's composure wavered, the mask of confidence cracking as each accusation was delivered with the authority of undeniable evidence and the unity of those he had wronged. The confrontation was not a single event, but a crescendo, a relentless unveiling of truth that left no room for evasion, each story interlaced with the others, creating a tapestry of betrayal that could not be ignored, forcing him to confront the reality of his actions as we demanded explanations. Restitution. An acknowledgement of the lives he had disrupted. I felt an odd mixture of vindication and sorrow. The sorrow not only for the losses we had suffered, but for the time and trust irretrievably taken from us. Yet vindication for the courage it took to stand together and ensure that his manipulations could no longer flourish in the shadows. As the confrontation drew to a close, I realized that what had begun as a personal journey through shock and betrayal had transformed into a collective assertion of justice and agency. We had reclaimed our voices, our stories, and our power, refusing to remain passive in the face of deceit. And in that shared act of exposure, I felt the weight of the past begin to lift. the path ahead would still be fraught with challenges, legal battles, and emotional reckonings. But the act of standing together against David Ace manipulations marked a turning point, a moment where truth was no longer optional and accountability was no longer negotiable. In confronting him publicly, we had not only demanded restitution, but had also taken the first steps toward reclaiming our dignity and the sense of security that had been stolen, forging a solidarity that could withstand the shadows of betrayal and illuminate a path toward justice for all of us. The aftermath of our confrontation with David had brought a mix of relief and a lingering tension, as the weight of exposing his actions publicly rippled into consequences we had long anticipated but could not fully control. And I found myself navigating a complex landscape where justice and accountability were finally taking shape. Almost immediately, the investigation that followed our public stand gained momentum, with authorities reviewing the evidence we had meticulously gathered, corroborated by bank statements, contracts, and the painstakingly documented accounts of the women he had defrauded, including Sarah and myself, each piece of proof forming a narrative too damning to ignore. I remember the nights spent on phone calls with investigators, providing every detail I could recall. My memory of his manipulations suddenly transformed from private anguish into public record, and with each conversation, the enormity of what we had uncovered became increasingly clear, the network of deceit stretching far beyond what I had initially imagined. It was both surreal and vindicating to watch the legal process unfold, knowing that the very man who had so carefully orchestrated lies and financial betrayals was now facing scrutiny under the law for wire fraud, securities fraud, identity theft, and bank fraud. The charges reflecting the full scale of his schemes and the meticulous planning that had enabled him to deceive so many. There was a strange duality in my feelings as I sat through court proceedings. Part of me still grappling with the personal betrayal, while another part recognized that justice, in its deliberate and often slow-moving fashion, was finally addressing the harm he had caused. I observed as prosecutors detailed the layers of his deceit, each statement a confirmation of the suspicions and fears I had wrestled with for months, and felt a quiet satisfaction that the truth we had unveiled could no longer be under charm or fabricated documents. The turning point came when David, confronted with overwhelming evidence and the collective testimony of his victims, agreed to a plea agreement, acknowledging his actions in a way that he had never done when confronted privately. I watched as he signed the documents that formalized restitution, the figures meticulously calculated to cover, as far as possible, the financial losses inflicted upon the women he had manipulated. The same hands that once orchestrated deceit now compelled to remedy in a tangible form. There was a weight in that moment, a mixture of justice served and the acknowledgement that restitution could never fully erase the breach of trust or the emotional scars. Yet it marked a profound shift from victimhood to empowerment, a transition from silence to action, from manipulation to accountability. Through the proceedings, I learned the profound impact of collective action and meticulous documentation, the importance of standing united not only to expose wrongdoing, but to ensure that the law could follow its course. And with each court session, the sense of vindication grew, tempered by a reflection on the vulnerabilities we had each faced and the strength required to confront them, as David navigated the legal consequences, making restitution and formally accepting responsibility. I realized that our journey had transformed from personal betrayal into a broader narrative of resilience and justice, a testament to the courage it takes to confront deception and reclaim agency in the face of calculated manipulation. In the end, while the scars of his actions remained, the path of legal accountability and restitution offered a measure of closure, the affirmation that truth, once revealed, carries with it the power to reshape lives and demand recognition of both harm and responsibility. After everything that happened, there was a long period of reflection, a time when I questioned not only my own judgment, but also the ways in which trust could be manipulated so completely. And yet, out of that pain, a sense of purpose began to emerge. Sarah and I, along with the other women who had endured David's schemes, found ourselves bound by a shared experience that was painful yet transformative, and we realized that the lessons we had learned could be used to help others avoid the same traps. The betrayal had left scars, but it had also given us insight into the methods and psychology behind manipulation and deception, knowledge that was far too valuable to keep to ourselves. It was then that the idea for Truth Seekers was born, a consulting firm dedicated to supporting victims of romance scams. Providing guidance, resources, and emotional support, and using our own experience as a roadmap to prevent others from falling prey to similar fraud. Building Truth Seekers was not easy. Each of us had to confront our own vulnerabilities and fears repeatedly, recounting details that still stung, yet in doing so, we found strength in solidarity. We shared our story openly, sometimes in workshops, sometimes in one-on-one consultations, and the response was overwhelming. People who had felt isolated and ashamed suddenly saw a path forward, realizing they were not alone and that recovery was possible. Our combined experiences allowed us to anticipate the red flags of deception, and our firm became a resource not just for advice, but for actionable steps to protect finances, emotional well-being, and personal boundaries. And we took pride in every small success story where someone avoided a scam because of our guidance. The transformation within ourselves mirrored the transformation we hoped to inspire in others. I watched Sarah grow into a confident advocate, no longer defined by the betrayal but by her ability to educate and empower others. And I too found a sense of purpose that had been absent during the months of deceit and despair. We created online content, hosted webinars, and collaborated with financial institutions to raise awareness, ensuring that our experience reached far beyond our immediate circle. And every message of gratitude reminded us why our painful journey had been worth it. Looking back, I see now that what began as a personal nightmare became a mission with a wider impact. And the sense of justice we had sought through the courts transformed into a proactive effort to protect, educate, and support. It is my hope that by sharing this story, others may find courage, vigilance, and the understanding that even in the aftermath of betrayal, there is an opportunity to turn pain into positive change. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to our journey. If you found value in this story and want to support our mission of awareness and empowerment, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us as we continue to shed light on the hidden dangers of deception.